Point. This is an old train bridge. It's always upright. It was landmarked in about 2007. This particular bridge is actually an old train bridge, and it's over a century old, but it used to take new sheets in on the cars down to the ground level to where Trump Tower is today. That was the newspaper many years ago. That was one of the functions of this bridge. This next bridge is the site of the Great Chicago Flood of 1992. They're replacing some of the pilings at the base of the bridge. They accidentally pierced this light rail.
I wonder why some are so low and some are a little high.
The pilings that were pierced.
That's crazy.
And like the pilings that were pierced, I have to tell you, nobody paid it much mind. So what happened? Water starts building up in this tunnel system. It was really for freight. Originally, drop off your building's coal, maybe take the ash out later, deliver your mail. So you get to this point of when they shut off in the late 1950s or so. 1991, water starts piling up in there. By April 13th of 1992, there's so much water in the tunnel system. The doors burst open, downtown starts to flood. We get sent home immediately. My favorite story, it happened on April 13th. If you'd yet to pay your taxes that year, we could get a tax extension. One summer I'm giving a tour, this passenger raises his hand. He said, I'm a tax attorney. I had clients as far away as Boston trying to get in on that 1992 Chicago tax extension that you all got due to that flood. And then they told us there were fish swimming in the basement of Marshall Field. It's a horrible image of your shop. But we get it cleaned up pretty quickly. We go back to work. They dealt with the Great Chicago Flood of 92. Next door here, this is the East Bank Club. This is Ezra Gordon and Jack Levin. Huge reinforced concrete health club. Not the place to which you health club in 1979, but they came anyhow. This is Barack Obama's health club when he's home. Oprah works out here when she's in town.
East Bank Club.
Oprah works out here.
Very popular
East Bank Club.
for workout. Attached to the north end, this particular building is much younger. It's done about 2007. This is by Solomon It's called Kingsbury Plaza. See with the big round windows? This is an apartment building. You rent your space here. There's a connection to the health club. There's a door that goes into here, but this is a very separate building, different architects, and much younger. So this is what we call a rental building. I have to go through this all the time when we have the marathon because people from so far away. But typically in the States, when you say rent or lease, you're occupying your space for a certain time period versus what we call a condo or a co-op, which is more of an ownership kind of relationship. Okay, let me grab some tea. We're going to go back in time to about 1909 here on the right.
1909. I think I like the old buildings more.
It's done by Nimmons, architect who did the traffic court, and Fellow, another architect. And you see the balconies? That's our clue that it's residential. You know what someone dubbed this? I love this expression. The balconization of Chicago. Take these old warehouses, they suspend a balcony, kind of step outside your window, that's about it. You've got the same in all your cities, I'm sure. So this was done by Nimmons and Fellow, who before they did this building and after they did this building, they did the Sears complex on the west side of Chicago. Very little of that survives today. Also, who lived in here in terms of tenants? Well, Wallace Business Forms, Wallace Computer Services, a number of tenants over the years before it became residential than it is today. Coming here, right, it's got a dark red brick. The window's kind of angled out right here on your right. This is called Park Place, designed by Solomon Cornwell Benz, about 2002. I think perhaps more interesting than Park Place, but done the same year. Look up ahead, you see the building of the triangular cross bracing, what we call chevrons, a little bit off the bank. You want to see that? Okay. That is Erie on the Park, designed by Lucien Lagrange, retired, semi-retired French architect, always been in Chicago a long time. His Erie on the Park right here quickly got nicknamed Little John. Can you guess why? Big John Hancock, which was the famous ex-Christ president, which of course now has a new name. Just so you don't know already, it's called 875 North Michigan. They lost their naming rights. One and the same though. Big John is the famous ex-Christ president. It's off to the east. Look between these two buildings where the green goes up and then out towards the lake. You probably will see the antenna, but not much more. So sorry to put it that way with you, but there's all these buildings and trees that come in front almost now to prohibit us from seeing much of it. We will compare 875 Michigan with Sears. Those are the two that you can go atop. We'll do that a couple times during the tour. Off through the trees, break in the trees, maybe you'll see, yeah, you can see a little bit of antenna, that's about it. Okay, quickly looking up ahead, here's another one that we don't see much of, but I think it's important. You see one of the blue tinted windows off the bank? And it's got Trevor T. Marble going around the corner there. Did you get a little peek at that one? That one was designed by Minoru Yamasaki, who did the World Trade Center complex in Manhattan.
Oh, the World Trade Center.
Like cluster buildings in New York City was done between about 1970 through 76. This was done about 1974 as Ward's corporate office. Aaron Montgomery Ward, of course, is the mailer of the guy. The Chicagoans, Ward is also a hero. Ward fought to keep Grant Park free of development. You been to Millennium Park yet? Anybody? You know, down behind the Art Institute, that's sort of the north end of Grant Park. Go a little bit further south, that's Grant Park proper. Even further south, we call it Burnham Park. Whatever you call all that green space along the lakefront. Ward filed 4 lawsuits between about 1890 and about 1910 against his business buddies. It's not easy to challenge these developers when they're your friends. Ward prevailed, and Chicago is so fortunate to have all that parkland along the lake. Ward's company came up here in the early 1900s.
Okay.
They closed, I want to say they closed about 2000 or so. There's 3 Ward's buildings that survived. One that
Thank you.
Yamasaki did that we just saw for a minute is condos today called the Montgomery. And I have to tell you real quickly, when Yamasaki and Ward's board designed it, Ward has already passed away by then. No one got a corner office. That Trevor G. Marble goes around every single corner. This is so into equality. But later on the tour, we will see a building where there's 16 corner offices on every single floor. Oh, I'd love to get those 2 developers together, share their building thoughts. Not going to happen. Okay, so that's the Ward's building. And that one, of course, is condos today called the Montgomery. Here's the second Ward's building. It's still with us. What's this? This is Deco. The verticality, the streamline, interpretation of the machine age. I don't want to preach to the choir. You all know what Art Deco is. This particular building was done in 1928, 1930 by
Wow.
Willis Macaulay, Ward's house architects and engineers. The building is got the balconies today, so of course we know it's residential. And there's a statue atop this building. She's got her arm and leg upraised like this. When we get a little bit further, you'll see her survive from the Ward's days. Now I can't get used to it. The bridge just went down at the beginning of the season. So it should be very easy to see her atop as we get a little bit further north here. So let me point her out to you just a second here. Okay, there she is. Some of you can see her. She's got her arm and leg upraised. She's known as the Spirit of Progress through commerce. Actually, I call her the first condo member. Here we go. Here's the third Ward's building that survives. This is over 1 million square feet of reinforced concrete. One of the largest reinforced concrete buildings in the world. When this end opened in 1906, 1908. The northern end 1917. And this is prairie style. Not just being the band between the window levels. The whole building kind of horizontally hugs the river. Over the years that I've been here, I've had passengers aboard who worked in here. I had 2 women on different tours that said when they worked for Wars, they roller skated through this building. Can you imagine? I mean, they'd be all automated. And one summer I had a gentleman aboard. He said, "Oh, I worked here during the skating years." We all looked at him. He said, "No, I don't know how to skate." That man said to this day he could still recall which Ward's goods were on which floors. His job was to collect them and mail them out to his customers. What is Ward's today? Office and residential. Did you see the Echo sign there? That's a logistics company. That's the office end, and this is residential. So this is about as far north as the map goes. If you look up to the right, that's the Man-Made Channel. It goes up to what we all call North Avenue, about a mile ahead of us. It's once. I don't think he had time. He had brickworks, he had a brewery, he had a lumber. He would have gone to the windbags to get that fair. But he didn't live that long. Today we do not call that Goose Island. We do call it Goose Island. I was going to say we do not call it Ogden Island any longer. I'd like you to know that that was its first name. And why do we call it Goose Island? Usually by the afternoon, some passenger will say Goose Island beer is usually drinking it. And that's the correct answer. The brewery is just to the north of the island. Another answer that we get is, oh, there are geese flying overhead. And that also is a proper answer. Go back earlier. Irish immigrants worked the businesses and industries of the North Branch. Some of them lived on that island. They were very poor. They kept geese as a food source. Not the Canada geese flying overhead. These are domesticated geese. Their wings were clipped. They're kept in pens. Thus the nickname Goose Island came from that. So for many of us. So you can, whatever interpretation pleases you the most. But I will want to tell you the latest to do with Goose Island. Up until 2017, it was mandated to remain light industry, no residential. That changed. Now, in the very early years when the immigrants were here, obviously it was residential then too. There was an interim period where it was not to be residential. So that's changed. So a Canadian developer named Ani, O-N-N-I, anybody from Vancouver, BC? Ani purchased 8 acres close to where we made the turn, and they are planning an incredible development. They're up to 2,700 residential units. 5 buildings, several will be very, very tall, some will be mid-rise. All mixed use, not just residential. But I have to tell you, all of this is coming in the future, except that they have a permit okay for one, and they're starting some work now. So it'll be quite a while before everything's together. If you want to keep up with it and see what's happening, go on your phones, type in, you can type in Halstead Point or Halstead Landing. Those are the 2 little sections that they've got there with their 8 acres, which is coming. Again, that'll be a big, big change for us here to see that here. Many, many more people will be coming in. There's another big change on the right-hand side here. What's happening here? This is Bally's, casino people. If you haven't been here in a few years, it's blocked in the Tribune. And I have to say, I'm editorializing a little bit here. I was sad to see the Tribune go. It's called the River District, and the big buildings that they have called Freedom Center after freedom of the press. What happened at the time was they sold. It was been on the market for quite a while. They sold to Bally's, and the Tribune went to Schaumburg, a suburb northwest. And Schaumburg they bought the Daily Herald. It's a pretty facility out there. Now the newspaper business is not what it used to be, obviously, as we talk about that. But I sort of editorialize and say, I never thought I'd feel sad about a building that wasn't even built in 1980. They tore that building down the past winter or two and put up the casino complex. And it's kind of sad to see that history of our printing industry. Because not only was the Tribune printed over here on your right, the other daily paper we have is the Sun-Times was printed in here, as was the Chicago edition of the New York Times and the Chicago edition of the Wall Street Journal. All that took place print-wise in that side. So that's a big change. But we look forward to Bally's and what's coming. They just about topped off their 500-room hotel right here. And you can see they work on Sunday. It's amazing. They work on Sunday.
That's what confuses. That's going to be the name of it.
But also, what do they have? They have parking, the casino, exhibit space, and open space. And they tell us at some point there will be up to 10 restaurants in here. So big changes coming here along the North
Serious
Bridge.
work.
But I stand corrected. There's some here today, but not many are working. They're with the security. Anyhow, as we talk about Bally's, if you're into gambling right now, they have a temporary space which has been extended till the end of 2027, as this has been. They hope to finish this year, at the end of this year. No, they're going another year to the end of 2027. But where they are is 600 North on Wabash Avenue. Beautiful old Medina temple building. It's such a pretty building, and that's where they are. They extended their lease over there for another year too. So the end of November next year is when they anticipate this being open, and they'll move from over there and go back to here. So keep your eye on it. But if you want to gamble right now, the one on Wabash Avenue, it's just a little bit 600 North. It's close to where we docked the boat. Not that close, but not too far. Happy to point you out the way when we get back there. And every time I stand up here and say, I feel like I'm telling you to jump off the boat and go gamble. And it is a beautiful old building. It's open 24/7. That's certainly your call whether that's one of your interests or not. So we can save that for later. So we come down here, I'm going to grab some tea, and then we're going to talk about bridge tenders' houses when we get under the bridge here. But let me get some tea for a second and do the same yourself. Or if there's any questions, shout them out. I'm not going anywhere. I'll be right here for a second. Next bridge. That's the one I'm referencing. And those of us on this side of the boat, on the right-hand side of the boat, our bridge tenders' house is on the far side of the next bridge. So we talk about them in terms of some women say, oh, I think charming and cute to raise your family in these little quarters. Other women are absolutely horrified to think of raising kids in these small, tiny houses. But to answer your question again, no. In this area up until 1903, there were swing bridges that swing out to the middle of the river, very accident prone. In 1903, we began to get the basket bridges up and down like this, like we have today. So the tenders, once their shift was over, they would leave. The other two would come and replace them. So look to the right, if you will. There's the one on the right-hand side for those of us sitting on this side of the boat. And actually, for transparency, looking at the people green powder bridge tender's house, they're not as old. They made them look much older. They're really from about the 1990s, so they made them look earlier than they did. Of course, people certainly live next door to the bridge tender's house, and these were done by Papa George Hames and Associates. This is what we call Kinsey Park. And I think what's interesting here is this is a gated community. But remember the public river walk? The city wants everyone to offer. So they don't really want us meandering through here all night long, but then the city wants them to have this open to us. Here's the compromise. You can meander here until sunset, what we call park district hours, and then we get out. These gates are only open if you make your home in here, and then, of course, if we're invited in. That's another story, too. Kinsey Park runs a little bit further west of here, and there's some taller buildings than what we're looking at right now. So as we come beneath here and we talk about how passengers say it would be so charming to live along the banks of the river in downtown Chicago, wait till you see the next floor. These are probably coming up on the right. The next four single-family homes are probably the most photographed after we talk about Willis, aka Sears Tower, or the Tribune Competition Building. So you might want to ready your cameras or at least feast your eyes when we get underneath this bridge. I'm going to start talking about them now. We've still got a few seconds before we get there. Harry Weiss is their architect. He did the river cottages between 1988 and 1989. 2 of them are 5-story single-family, 2 of them are 6. Every level has a deck or a balcony, and each 2 share an elevator if you're a little bit worried about climbing the stairs in them. And as you look at them, Harry Weiss was an avid sailor. So triangular-shaped windows and round porthole windows. And we think that's a metaphor for the man sailing fish. Here they come right here. We might not each one second. I have never seen so much waving in my life today. I always get really excited. I think it's a question. Okay, off to the right. Here come the cottages. There's the first one. You see 5-story single family. Look at this. Deck and balcony on every level. Deck and balcony on every level. Look at the third one. You're a very polite audience, maybe, because it's something usually people say. For many years, we never saw them on the market. The third one up, and they might have changed hands internally, but the third one up was on the market for $2.4 million or so, maybe 12 or 13 years ago. It was a long time ago. Next door here, this very deep salmon-colored building is an old cold storage. The redesign was done by Harry Weiss into the cottages next door, but this is done by Frank Abbott, the youngest section in 1907. Look how thick those balcony walls are. They followed that as cold storage in 1979, it took 6 months to thaw. They hauled out of there about 500 semis full of matadors here in
Ooh,
Cork.
that's
Not
crazy.
very pleasant thought. And that was the insulation of that building. Then they punched in all the windows and balconies we see today. If you want to look it up on your phones, it's called Fulton House Condos. Next door here is River Bend. Across the way from us are 4 townhouses. See the little short staircases? And as you look above, there's sort of opaque glass for a few floors. That's parking. The rest of those are condos that look east. That is a single loaded corridor building. Get off the elevator on the backside. Here's your feet going down the hallway like this. Beneath where you walk, they added a light well. Above where you walk, they installed a second one. That's how you get light to your rooms. But on the backside, you want this beautiful view to the left here as we come in. But you do not want to live with only eastern light in your living quarters. It doesn't make for white space. So that's how they resolved that. So you all look whichever way pleases you, but don't forget to take a peek here to the left. Ooh, I tease the New Yorkers. As beloved as Manhattan is, I've never even toured there. Somebody on board from New York City. I'm sure there's somebody. You guys? Oh, right in the first row. I'm just teasing. And New York is so beloved to most of you. The buildings, the people, and the energy, you just got it all over all of us. But we get the vistas. We can't take any credit. It's geography because our river goes every which way. I love this view looking back towards the Hudson. You know, you're from New York too?
Yes.
Oh, I'm surrounded. Get up here, somebody else. Some Midwesterner comes in the first row. You from New York?
Minneapolis.
Oh,
Minneapolis.
We got you. I'm just teasing. I think Manhattan to me makes me walk faster. The trees, and then there's round air intake holes. Those are the right of way for the trains. And then there's that plaza where you saw that piece of sculpture. Don't build in Chicago downtown and keep it for yourself. That is all public space. It does not belong to the people who put the building in. The next door here to the right. This is officially the South Branch. You kind of get your bearings,
Oh, wow.
you guys? Okay. The South Branch has train yards all along the west bank or the right-hand side, and they take precedence of whatever we can put on. So I have to say, right now, you can't see the trains. They're somewhat camouflaged. But look at the building. I cannot tell you how many passengers said, whoa. Cheryl figured out the balance on it. It looks like you can tumble right over on the river. Indeed, they did. When you come down to the ground, the end's only about 12 meters wide. Can you hear me over the train? I'm so sorry. Can you hear okay? On the ground go these pilings to about 110 feet. We're not like Manhattan. We don't have bedrock and surface. It's very sandy and swampy. It's way deep. You get this fixed in and then you're fine in that sense. Also though, I should say, on the top of this building are huge containers of water. It's called the damper system, which slides back and forth. Conjunction with the wind, opposition with the wind. They kind of take away the wind's force from the building and put it onto the water. That of course helps the building be more stable. Next door, this
We
side
didn't go on
says
that
Boeing.
side, did we?
Now we're going to the other end of the country. Anybody from the Pacific Northwest? Well, this building went. Oh, you call your. No, you're too young, maybe. But it was such a controversy when they came out here. The building itself was done in 1990 by Ralph Johnson, Purpose Will. It was
Oh,
born
that's
international.
crazy.
It only came
That
about
makes sense.
2000, I think. When they came,
Wow.
you know, there's such a fuss about them coming to the Midwest, but guess what? Most of them left a year and a half ago. They're in Virginia, outside of Washington, which is perfect for their product. They still have naming rights here. They still have a small presence in Chicago. Atop that building, if you want to look up or catch us on the way home, there are 2 features. I'll mention them now. That clock tower is one of the tallest anywhere in the world today. I tell you, postmodern building. Postmodern pays tribute to the past. The past now almost had a pocket watch or a wristwatch. Use clocks on buildings to tell time. This is a little bit easier if you don't get a crick in your neck, but if you want to look back now, look at this. At this end, you see that? It's a rooftop truss.
Oh, that is.
Johnson had to put the supports on top because the trains are switching underneath. You don't have to leave the trains, the supports exposed. Most of us, they look like a trestle train bridge. We think Ralph Johnson did that on purpose because trains dominate the South Branch of our river. Next door here on the right is another deco. This is 1929 by Hubbard Whitman. Beautiful interlocking vertical piers rise above
That's
this
what I was
plaza.
looking for.
Looking at this.
Lyric Opera House.
It's the old daily newspaper
Oh,
from
that's
1929
it.
to about 78. Today it's offices. And I like to say where that water taxi is. That's a train station from the suburbs. Up on the water taxi and they ferry you over to downtown.
I modeled there
also
one
like to
time
tease and
too.
say,
I was
guess who was a
young.
reporter when it was daily news? And there's no correct answer. There's so many reporters from the daily news days. The one that fascinates me that I like to pass on to you, the poet Carl Sandburg actually had the police beat. You know, City of Big Shoulders, Hog Butcher of the World, that guy. He had the police beat in the daily news. Okay. Next door, this is Gateway Center 1. We've got 4 in a row. We're going to talk Gateway, talk Mies, Skidmore, IIT, and even the Bauhaus. Mies van der Rohe came to Chicago from Germany in 1938. Why? He was invited to head the architecture department at Armour Institute. What do we call that today? IIT, Illinois Institute of Technology, or Illinois Tech. Mies is in Germany. This is called the Bauhaus style. Very minimalist. What's happening in Germany? We don't want to go through all World War II history, but Hitler's ascending. The Bauhaus is closed. Mies comes to Chicago. we don't say Bauhaus. We say International. So look up here at Gateway Center 2. It's just identical to the other. This is 1967. That's 1965. So you look at these office buildings. What do you see? Steel skeleton, dark glass curtain wall, minimal ornamentation, flat roof. And usually they're built rectilinearly around a grid. Why do we have so many in Chicago? Of course, because Mies came to head IIT, absolutely. But also Skidmore, Owings & Merrill, huge followers of Mies. They founded their firm around the time that Mies arrived. Skidmore's all over the world today. I'm sure they're in your cities. When we talk about them being here in Chicago, we say international. We don't say Bauhaus very much. International glass box. Less is more. You know what Mies said about his buildings? God is in the details. So it's called this modernism of mid-century. There's lots of labels, and they all sometimes have a little bit of difference in them, but overall, this is very plain type of style. There's one details that I mentioned already. Gateway Center 3 is Skidmore from the early 70s. Sometimes I wish this one were not here. Looking over to your right, this is on the main concourse of Union Station. Can you see a little bit of Union Station peeking out behind? Beautiful train station from 1925. So looking in front here, I have a little trick to connect Mies and Skidmore in your head. I mean no disrespect to either firm, but someone dubbed Skidmore, Owings & Merrill the three blind Mies. That was pretty sad. Keep them in your head that way if you'd like to. Here comes their one from 1971. And look at the end of this one. Does it not look a little bit like the John Hancock or 875 Michigan turned sideways? Yes or no, if it says stand that up on end. I have to say to you, why does it have the columns racing on the exterior? It was done for the Mercantile Exchange. They wanted a column-free interior, so anybody appreciates not having to deal with columns. Right about their space. Here comes Gateway Center 4. This is the youngest of the four gateways. Again, it's Skidmore. And again, we talk about international, but this one for the most part, most of us call this what? Contextualism. Another complexes context, its surroundings, the curve of the glass, the tint, remind you of the river. In fact, I've had passengers say, well, the glass is rippling, your river ripples. You know, we all see things in our own little fashion.
They do look like
But if you're keeping track of the styles, I don't know who's doing such on a Sunday afternoon, but I will say to you, here they go. Postmodern, International, Chicago School, and Art Deco. We've got a fifth style that we'll talk about on the way home a little bit later. So I'm happy to repeat these styles. And there's rarely a building that doesn't have a little bit of an element of some other style in it. And people define these in their own fashion. You don't all have to agree on this. Okay, up ahead of Gateway Center 4, which again is from the early 80s, coming upon the old Central Post Office, which was the largest post office in the world when it opened. Two portions, 1921, the end. It begins in 1932, the second section. But think of Chicago. This building is almost 2.7 million square feet, 2.6 million plus. Looking at the building, boy, Chicago in the early years, we were a huge mail order city. We had Sears, we had Ward's, we had Butler Brother, we had Spiegel. We don't have all that today. This building grew inefficient. It's vacated in the mid-90s. I don't know if any of you remember coming by here. We're so sad to look up there. Panes of glass were missing. They had plywood over the windows. Some of the facade needed work. You'll never forget it.